Have you ever paused to wonder why certain intimate encounters etch themselves into your mind forever, while others just fade into oblivion? I once thought intimacy boiled down to something straightforward, like raw chemistry, perfect timing, or sheer physical pull. But the deeper I delved, the clearer it became that this view was missing a crucial piece. There's a hidden layer, a subtle unspoken dialogue in how two people truly link up. And it's that unseen thread that often decides whether the bond lingers eternally or slips away as just another fleeting episode. What's fascinating is how few of us ever bother to unpack it. We dive into the instant, savor the rush of sensation, yet we seldom probe what lies beneath the surface, beyond the mere physicality. That's where it gets truly captivating, because intimacy isn't solely about bodily motions. It's about the feelings conveyed in ways no spoken words could ever capture. The signal that uncovers this reality most vividly isn't what folks typically picture. It's not the kiss, not the embrace, and not even the act of lovemaking itself. Instead, it's a distinct motion, frequently overlooked or misunderstood. Viewed through the right lens, it reshapes your grasp of men, partnerships, and even your own self. Before I disclose precisely what it is, let me pose this to you. Have you ever felt baffled by someone's behavior, as if their words claimed one narrative, but their physical cues spun an entirely opposite tale? I recall a phase when I was convinced I had intimacy all figured out, until an encounter shattered every assumption I held. It left me doubting whether the cues I relied on were truly conveying what I'd assumed. That bewilderment lingered far longer than the physical exchange ever did. So let's hit pause for a beat. Why do we pin so much stock in verbal assurances when authenticity usually shines through deeds? What if the most raw, exposing, and bold message a man could offer wasn't uttered aloud but enacted in silence? I won't spoil the reveal just yet, since part of its potency comes from you spotting it yourself. I'll only hint that this motion I'm describing feels effortless, not scripted or routine. It's not a universal habit every guy shares with every partner. In fact, it's one of the sharpest markers separating shallow sparks from profound ties. Some of you might already sense what I mean. Others may not, and that's perfectly fine, because in this video, I'll break it down methodically, unveiling not just the motion itself, but the 5 concealed insights it signals each time it unfolds. Stick with me through to the end, and you might never view closeness the same way again. Let me lay it all out plainly here. I don't claim to hold every key. I've stumbled plenty, misread cues, talked myself into believing a guy's investment ran deeper than it did, all because I craved it to be true. I've also brushed off instances that, in hindsight, carried far greater weight than I grasped at the time. So I'm not here to preach. My aim is to pass along what I've uncovered, what I've challenged, and what I've come to see in a fresh light. You might nod along or push back, and either way, I believe it's a dialogue worth diving into. Since closeness transcends mere craving, it's laced with purpose. And purpose is precisely what so many overlook until it's too late to matter. Here's my commitment to you. If you're game to venture deeper alongside me, to peel back not just the tangible side, but the mental and heartfelt strata underneath, you'll start noticing patterns that slipped past you before. You'll decode why certain guys behave as they do, why some bonds feel irresistibly charged, and why others leave you hollowed out. But prior to unveiling the initial hidden insight, I want you to reflect. When was the last time someone's deeds rang louder than their declarations? Hold that in mind, because your answer could forever alter how you perceive nearness. The first hidden truth is surrender, and I get it. At first glance, that term might strike you as oddly at odds with the idea. Surrender. Shouldn't closeness thrive on fervor, power, seizing the lead, broadcasting hunger? That's precisely how I once framed it. I figured for passion to pulse vividly, a man had to steer, command, execute with such command that his authority left no room for doubt. Yet the more intently I watched, the more an unforeseen shift emerged. Real depth often ignites precisely when that facade of mastery melts away. Consider this. From boyhood, men are drilled to resist yielding. Stay tough, unyielding, hide any hint of softness. Even in bed, they shoulder the burden to endure longer, dazzle more, avoid any slip or stutter. And yet, in that singular instant when a man yields fully to you, when he quits fretting over his image or execution and pours every ounce of focus onto you, something profound ignites. This isn't fragility, it's resilience masked as release. I once puzzled over why any man would dare step outside the role society scripted for him his whole life. The insight I eventually embraced is that yielding is a testament to self-assurance. It whispers, right now I don't need to orchestrate it all or validate myself. I'm here to offer, to dissolve into you, to spotlight you instead of me. And that's scarce. Scarce because it demands bravery, to shed the armor, if only briefly, and affirm, I feel secure enough in this space to let go. Some dismiss it as trivial, just another beat in the routine of passion, a standard step in the playbook. But haven't you sensed the gulf? Haven't you clocked the variance between rote compliance and utter immersion? The vibe is unmistakable. One feels automated, the other almost reverent. That's the core of surrender. It's not the mechanics of the flesh, but the soul speaking through them. This was the pivot for my outlook. I used to idolize the stoic types, the ones who never dropped their shields, who projected untouchable might. But over time, I saw how those very men often felt remote, guarded, like an invisible barrier divided us. The ones who truly resonated were those bold enough to dismantle that divide, those secure in offering without needing to conquer. That yielding made me feel singled out in a way nothing else could match, because if a man can release himself amid closeness, it shows he's grounded enough to recognize his strength isn't brittle. He's steady enough to shift his entire axis toward you. And that's when the link evolves. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone offered to you without rush, without agenda, without tallying what they'd gain back? How did it land with you? For countless women, that's the turning point. Passion shifts from mere indulgence to something akin to reverence. It's not solely his physical moves, but the guts it takes to step out of the limelight. That's surrender. And when it's genuine, it carves out room for closeness to bloom beyond showmanship into raw authenticity. Truth is, not every man reaches that threshold. Some never will, because the notion of release feels too perilous. But those who do expose something remarkable, not just how they perceive you, but how they view themselves. Wordlessly they're declaring, I'm solid enough to yield, solid enough to center this on you, solid enough to relent. And the instant you clock that, you start seeing closeness through a filter you can't unsee. Yet surrender is merely the gateway, for nestled within it lies the seed of something even richer. If release opens the door, then faith forms the foundation. Without it, nearness crumbles into rote mechanics, something hollow no matter how much fire you try to infuse. And yet faith remains one of the most delicate, readily dismissed facets of true proximity. We chatter about it endlessly in partnerships, faith in finances, fidelity, spoken vows. But the faith I'm highlighting here is distinct. It's corporeal, sure, but laced with sentiment. Because in those peaks of raw exposure, he's not just bearing his longing for you, he's laying bare his reliance on you. Imagine what it takes for a man to breach that edge. Men aren't raised to embrace fragility. They're groomed to cloak fears, uphold a polished front, dodge anything that might paint them lesser. And still, in this exchange, there's no veil, no buffer, no retreat. He's right there, laid open, opting to stay. That's faith in its unadulterated essence. I once fooled myself into thinking faith hinged on grand flourishes, heartfelt admissions, oaths, sweeping avowals. But as years piled on, I realized those utterances rang empty, absent the steady undercurrent of quiet deeds. And in passion, this stands as one of the purest. because for a man to venture there, he must trust you won't mock him, won't erode his core strength, won't mistake his offering for inadequacy. He needs to bank on your reception, with openness, appreciation, a quiet awe for the rawness he's unveiling. You can detect the shift, feel when a man's faith anchors him fully versus when he's just going through motions out of duty. There's a tenderness to it, a focus, a way he tunes into your responses, not from doubt, but from genuine regard for your ease. This isn't skill, it's reliance. Let me own this outright. I used to wave off such instances, muttering to myself, it's nothing, just the physical side. But reflecting now, it's crystal clear. The men who wove faith into our encounters were the ones who etched themselves into my spirit. Their moves conveyed, I feel protected with you. I want to yield to you fearlessly. And that haven reshaped everything, easing my tensions, coaxing my own openness, inviting my release in turn. Because here's the angle many miss. Reliance isn't one-sided. It's not merely him leaning on you. It's you leaning on him enough to accept, to let yourself be witnessed in your unfiltered state, to relinquish grip and affirm, I trust you'll handle me gently. Accepting is its own bold stroke. And when both sides converge there, passion ascends to the sublime. Now reflect, when did you last place faith in someone enough to shed pretenses, to stand unguarded, to embrace rawness without rehearsal or shields? It's uncommon, right? And that's why it weighs so heavily, because reliance elevates a carnal moment into a tether, turns the simplest gesture into a hushed vow of sanctuary and loyalty. That's why, when a man elects to show up this way, he's not just delivering bliss. He's delivering evidence of feeling shielded enough to bear himself, daring enough to court nearness, receptive enough to lower defenses with you. And that reliance, once forged, doesn't stay boxed in the bedroom. It seeps into the whole dynamic. Abruptly, dialogues deepen, walls tumble, and you find yourself, she feels more secure, more intertwined, more liberated to embrace her authentic self. That's the essence of trust. Yet, as potent as trust may be, it forms just one layer. For when trust merges with surrender, it unlocks a pathway to something profoundly sacred. If surrender stands as the gateway and trust as the foundation, then worship infuses the entire realm with its essence. And I don't wield that term lightly, for worship holds profound depth. It's not about submission or yielding control. It's rooted in reverence, in recognizing something worthy of awe and honor. For countless women, this marks the pinnacle of transformation, not merely about being caressed or craved, but about being exalted. Consider this. How often do women face clashing signals about their forms? Be bold, yet not overly daring. Be alluring, yet not excessively sensual. Take pride in yourself, but avoid vanity. This endless tug-of-war breeds shame, doubt, and fragility. Yet amid these warring cues, when a man draws near with genuine reverence, radiating an aura of, I don't just embrace your form, I cherish it, I savor it, I revere it, something deep within stirs to life. I recall a phase when I grappled to feel fully at ease in my own skin, wondering if I was appealing enough, if I tipped the scale toward excess or shortfall. But in those fleeting instances of true worship over mere want, the uncertainties hushed. I felt truly seen, cherished, even luminous. That's worship's magic in closeness. It slices through the chaos, granting the irrefutable thrill of being treasured as a gem. And let's be frank, not every man delivers this. Some approach intimacy like a checklist, rushing through motions, fulfilling perceived duties without depth or fervor. Can you sense it? Of course you can. You detect when someone's vibe is offhand, scattered, almost indifferent. But you also know the shift, when the rhythm slows, when every brush feels intentional, when each motion whispers, I'm fully here, wholly attuned to you. That's the mark of worship. And here's the exquisite irony. Though it seems he's pouring everything into you, worship nourishes him too, witnessing your yielding, your form's response, your blend of assurance and release. It validates him. He feels invigorated, potent in the gentlest way, linked not just bodily but soulfully. Worship sparks a shared fire. For him, it's devotion in action. For you, it's affirmation embraced. I once deemed worship too lofty for intimacy, suited to temples or rites, not passion or union. But with years, I witnessed how such honor reshapes bonds between souls. When a man reveres you thus, he's not declaring, "You're an object I crave." He's affirming, "You're an encounter I treasure." This nuance alters everything as your form ceases to be a commodity or burden, becoming a source of joy. And when a woman senses exaltation, she blooms, she unfolds further, she offers more, she trusts deeper. Worship fosters safety, and that haven lets longing run untamed, fearless. Reflect, when last did you feel not just wanted but revered, not merely pursued but esteemed? Such rarity underscores worship's weight. It's not showmanship, it's immersion, not duty, it's dedication. And that dedication etches echoes that linger far beyond the instant. But here's what most overlook. Worship isn't solely sentiment, it's commitment too. For true reverence demands offering time, attention, vitality. And that propels us to the next insight, one that elevates closeness further. If surrender is the entry, trust the base, worship the air, then emotional stake is the evidence that it all rings true. Because truth be told, anyone can mimic the steps, anyone can feign ardor, anyone can stage intimacy like a script, but you discern the gap when someone's truly engaged with you, not just taking, not chasing fleeting itch, but channeling their essence, their gaze, their hours into you. Such immersion defies pretense. I once mistook focus for depth, assuming momentary alertness meant profound care. But attention can skim the surface, fading with the thrill. Stake, however, endures. You feel it in the linger, in the attunement to your cues, in the reluctance to rush the peak, relishing the path instead. That's emotional stake, not what occurs, but how. And here's where it wields true might. It's deliberate. He could default to self, to his own rush, to quick wins. That's simpler, yet choosing to pour into you proclaims, "You merit my labor, you warrant my pause, you justify the savor." And sensing that, grasping that reverence, reframes it all. I've pondered why emotional stake resonates so deeply. The answer for me is it elevates intimacy from mere exchange to indelible mark. Union sans stake evaporates swift, hollow, like a ticked box and done. But with stake, it forges ties that echo post-climax, a recollection, a thread, a tale etched in flesh and spirit. That's the divide. Let me bear a slice of my soul. There were stretches I settled for closeness lacking stake, convincing myself it sufficed, that bare sensation would do, no more craved. Yet each left a quiet void, revealing my true hunger, not the deed, but its import. Import demands stake, for stake signals. I care enough to exceed the bare. I care to heed you, adapt to you, harmonize with you. That's what lifts fervor beyond facade. And another twist. Though stake seems all for you, it sustains him. Seeing your form awaken, watching you dissolve in the now, that's his yield. That's proof his toil birthed authenticity. In this give and take, both thrive. Ponder, when last did someone pour fully into you, not from obligation, but yearning? How did it stir you? For many, it's the chasm between oblivion and imprint, between feeling spent and feeling sovereign. Emotional stake bridges worship to bond, for repeated stake evolves beyond fervor into fidelity, reliability, tacit vow. And that guides us to the ultimate truth, the thread weaving all, unveiling the core whisper. If surrender gates, trust grounds, worship envelopes, stake verifies, then unspoken bond is the quiet vow binding it. For ultimately, words cheapen, oaths shatter, labels blur. But deeds speak an unforgeable tongue. This ritual, laced with immersion, fervor, purpose, often unveils more than myriad vows. I once viewed bond as clamour, rings, ranks, proclamations, but time taught me true bond often whispers in unseen instants. It emerges in steadfast giving, in recurring attunement to you, in unguarded reveal sans fanfare. And when a man enters such closeness with authentic nurture, he's not chasing ephemera. He's conveying, I'm present, I select you, let this count. It may not pledge eternity, but it pledges his spark, his openness, his wholeness to you then. And men don't scatter those lightly. Hence unspoken bond, meaning pulses wordless. Ever notice how tiniest deeds loom as grandest oaths, the linger over haste, the recall of whims unprompted, the showing up when skipping tempts? That's bond veiled and in closeness unchanged. Choosing such poor signals, you're no mere vessel, your tether, affinity, worth his fullest self, and claiming that shifts all, halting the query, is this just carnal? To grasp, this is closeness voicing beyond speech. Let me candid, I've harboured doubts on care, on true selection, on bond's solidity. Retrospect shows not their utterances answered, but their deeds. Deeds affirming, you're not here for my whim alone. You're co-voyager in this. Let it signify. That's bond beyond utterance. Felt, it's known. Muse, when last did deeds, not declarations, affirm your worth? How did it reshape your view of them, of self? Closeness at zenith isn't tricks, not spectacle, not even the rite. It's revelations, yield, assurance, reverence, stake and cresting, bond. Viewing closeness thus, ignorance fades. You spot shallow ties from profound. You prize not just urge, but honour. You sense closeness's dialect always murmured. You simply hadn't tuned in. So my prompt, next in that crux, don't hasten past. Don't dismiss as carnal fragment. Heed, absorb what's conveyed, query what deeds truly voice, and perhaps crucially, are you granting receipt? If this sparked vision, reframed closeness, join me deeper. Thumbs up if it resonated. Subscribe to catch forthcoming. Share with one needing this echo, for authentic closeness transcends flesh. Its affinity, honor, and wordless truths, bearing all words conceal.